I've talked about the risks that we have seen that go along with being a trad wife or a stay-at-home mom for too long. Staying out of the workforce impacts your financial future and could put your life at risk, especially since you're not paying into Social Security. Family planning is financial planning, and it is so important for women to see what could happen and then just plan accordingly. Yes, everybody wants a marriage that lasts forever and that everybody is taken care of forever, but these are things that really have happened to women. That's the reason why I share these stories. I came across this comment and I want to share it. Terry Ann says, 12 years together, 10 years of being a stay-at-home mom/wife. 7 miscarriages in 8 years, trying for our 4 and 5-year-old girls now. I begged him for years to be part of our lives. He cheated so many times I refused to touch his phone anymore. He said more sex would fix all of our problems. I said if you would help some be part of our lives, would want to more. 4 weeks ago, before he left for work, he broke up with me, left without a dime, took the only car we had. We haven't seen or heard from him since. I am walking 2 hours to and from work every day and 45 minutes on the weekends to my second job. Had to start back at $7.25 an hour because of the huge work gap history. I'm losing our apartment because I am $323 short of having rent right now, waiting for court, and then they will evict us. I'm the only one in my family left alive, so my choice is to bring my 4 and 5-year-old girls to a homeless shelter that you can only be there from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And it's just a big open room that everyone sleeps together that I'll never feel comfortable enough to actually sleep and leave my girls unprotected. This is what happens when you trust, depend, or give a man a chance to starve you. This is the reason why I say things like women need to have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, L, M, N, O, P, all of the plans. Because when you don't see what happens in the discard stage, when a man can just get rid of his wife appliance, sometimes they just discard their own children as well. Men can opt in or opt out of parenthood. They do. They have. This is one of the reasons why women fought so hard to be able to go to work. Men will do the things where they misrepresent history, like women just simply wanted to go into the workforce so they could be equal to men. No, they absolutely did not. It was for survival's sake, because these dudes can just leave. They could just leave their whole families and go off and create a whole new life, a whole new family, and leave the woman holding the bag. Regardless, women need to provide for themselves, need to provide for their children, because at the end of the day, those 4 and 5-year-old girls are looking at mother being hungry. So what is she going to do? She's going to figure out a way. But this is the reason why I talk about these things right now. Women have to have a sense of survival right now, a sense of self-preservation right now. You have these influencers, these trad wife influencers that are beautiful. They are showing what things could look like when you are in your 20s. But when women speak about what happens when they are in their 40s and 50s and just being discarded, what do you do then with the huge gap in your work history? They're not going to be, they don't care. They're not going to give you the money that you need simply because you have mouths to feed. They're going to drop you back down and make you work your way back up. And if you do have young kids that you have to care for, you're going to take less hours because you have to be there for your children as well. It is a system that is set up to make sure that you fail. It's set up to make sure that you stick and stay with men, even if they don't have your best interests in mind, if they're controlling, if they're abusive. Some women stick and stay simply because they don't have any choices. I was sent this woman's video. She was a stay-at-home mother, and she's now going through a divorce. Her husband basically said she had no value simply because she wasn't bringing in anything financially. She was asking for just some money to take care of them, just to get her afloat so that she could start the new life. And husband, soon to be ex-husband, said absolutely not. You didn't bring anything of value. Yeah, you had some babies, but anybody can do that. This is the reason why I will continue to say who you marry is not who you divorce. So you can think that everything is going to be fine and good because that person loves you right now. And that is absolutely amazing that the person loves you right now. But you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Only you need to take care. You need to make sure that you have a sense of self-preservation and a sense of survival, because it's not just you. It's typically going to be your children as well. All right, now go ahead and watch her video and let me know what you think on the back end.
But it was the things that he said in the way that made me feel. That's the reason why I'm not with him today. And one of those things that he said to me was when we were already splitting up and I was moving out. And I was telling him, like, hey, you know, we don't need to do a nasty divorce, but like, you do need to like give me some money to go on about my way, because I've been a stay-at-home mom for the past year and a half, and I don't have anything to show for that year where I could have been earning money. I was at home taking care of us. Like, you got to work because of my sacrifice, so I deserve something. And like, nothing unreasonable, but just something so that I can breathe, so that I'm not like paycheck to paycheck, literally. And he told me, he said, and I also said that, yeah, I didn't work, but like, I provided value because I gave birth to 2 children and I raised them, and I helped with family life. And his answer was, what you did, that's not how value works. What you did didn't have any value because there was a lot of women who wanted to give me kids. I could have had kids with anybody, but you can't just run out and go find a man to provide for you any day of the week. So me providing for you was more valuable than you giving me 2 children. And like, I just really want to spare like any young woman what you go through to bring these children to this planet is not worth what they're telling you is going to be your reward. I had to sit there and hear him say that to my face. When they say marriage is a humiliation ritual, this is what they mean. I've forgotten more shit that he said like that to me than I can remember.
We talked about mankeeping about a week ago. Actually, we've been talking about it for a few weeks now. The theory where the woman in a romantic relationship with a man becomes the one that is doing all of the emotional labor for the man, where he has very little friends and everything tends to be dumped on the shoulder of the woman. Well, I was tagged in this post in the 2X chromosome subreddit. She says the difference between men and women handling breakup is real, and she gives this short post. She says, we broke up about 2 months ago. I initiated, but he knew it was coming, but did not care enough. And here comes the difference. I discussed it with my friends, my sister, my family, talked a lot about it. They helped me to see things differently. Some agreed, some not, but I felt real support and love for them. I got over it quickly and I feel good. He, on the other hand, has no deep friendships, is not close with his family, and is lonely in general. He always told me he doesn't need anyone, which is funny to me because I just learned he is now going out with different women and trauma dumps on them, using them as emotional support. I was always skeptical about the whole women have deeper friendships than men thing, but I can be more vulnerable with my college friends I know for 3 years than he is with his childhood friends. So I guess it's true. He keeps texting me long paragraphs of emotional rubbish, things he should discuss with his friends, not me. I learned through this how important it is to have a support system and to be a support system to others. So girls, how did you manage a breakup and how did he? So this started a full-on conversation. We've had these discussions before. So this all, we talk about things that are in articles and then we find these stories. We hear these stories. Women jump into the comment section to reinforce that these are the things that women are really going through. So when I say things like don't lose your hobbies, don't lose your friends, keep in contact with your family, have things of your own and don't completely lose yourself, this is precisely why. This is where I was tagged in by Beneficial Bell. She says, are these men lonely enough? She forgot to say men, but that's what she meant. And I said, this goes back to the Mankeeping article and why women are leaving these dudes alone. They need to learn how to be friends, but they won't. And that's the thing. These men are not really being that great of friends with men, and they don't see women as human enough to actually be platonic friends with us. They just see us as their emotional support humans. They see us as the bang maids. They think that we're therapists when they actually need to go off and get a full-on therapist. And until they learn how to relate to women as human and how to relate to their friends on a level that actually mentally supports them, they're not going to get out of this cycle that they're devolving. They're not doing that well. Now, here is the OP who wrote this saying, I do my makeup with your videos playing. Keep up the good work. So shout out to Pink Pineapple. I'm like, hey girl, this post is going to make it into today's video. So she's kind of stoked about that. Now let's get to some of these comments because there are stories in the comment section. Double Fault says, my roommate, male, mid-30s, has been repeatedly rejected by women over the last few months and was really miserable in July. He was quite sad about one woman in particular that he went on one date with who wasn't interested in anything further. I knew the reasons why he was grumpy and just left dating conversations alone. However, he has maybe 2 friends and those relationships are quite surface level. His one friend came over in July and asked him how his dating adventures were going. I overheard the conversation. My roommate talked about this woman he was interested in and mentioned how interesting she was and what her hobbies were. His friend asked the status of the relationship and my roommate just vaguely said they were seeing each other. By this point, the woman was no longer interested and had rejected him. I was quite taken aback by the conversation because I have my close female friends who I share my disappointments with and they share with me in return, and we support each other. Maybe his ego was too bruised to be honest with his friend, but I felt sad. I felt very sad for him because they can't share. They can't be vulnerable. They can't talk about rejection. And if you can't talk to your male friends and you don't have a woman to talk to or female friends because you don't understand reciprocity, then you just keep all of that in and it just keeps devolving. Now we have a story from Venja Wonder. She said, he had it a long time coming. I told him for almost 3 years of our 13-year relationship that he needed to stop doing X, Y, and Z he started doing at some point during the relationship. That I wanted to spend my life with him, but if he kept doing X, Y, and Z, I could not do that because they hurt me every day. And at one point, I would lose my ability to cope and would leave. He acknowledged that things X, Y, and Z were a problem and that he understood that he needed to stop doing them. He did not. We had that talk dozens of times during those final 3 years of our relationship. He did sometimes stop doing X, Y, and Z for a few days or, depending on my anger while discussing them, for a few weeks. Right when I stopped complaining, he returned to doing X, Y, and Z. One day he once again did one of those things and I just had enough. He was flabbergasted that I was serious about one day breaking up over it with him. I hadn't in the past. Why would I do it now? I've got letters I wrote to him about stopping doing X, Y, and Z. I absolutely know that I told him I would run out of patience one day and I would leave over those things. He didn't take me seriously one bit. Imagine the shocked Pikachu face. After a long dwindled 6 months, he finally moved out. Up until this day, over 7 years later, he isn't over our breakup and cannot believe I seriously left him over that after 3 years of putting up with it, and claims if he knew that I was that serious, he would have stopped. Bastard. He absolutely did it on purpose and didn't see a reason in stopping it to make me happier, and to this day doesn't understand that's even worse than not being able to change. I was essentially over him the day he finally moved out because I gave him all I could and there just wasn't anything left to give anymore. But that relationship taught me exactly what I need in a partner. Half a year after X finally moved out, I met my current partner, and I think I couldn't find a better match than him. X is still single to this day, and through the grapevine, I heard that he once a month books a girlfriend experience to cope. He hasn't gotten any friends. All the people he deemed friends left him to fend for himself during our breakup. The only person who seriously cared for him are my parents. A long and sad traumatic story. TLDR, he is lonely as F because he has almost no social support network. I'm very happy in a new relationship. These dudes have got to learn how to pour into their friends and not be so surface level. Brylar Stan hones in on this part. If he knew I was that serious, he would have stopped, saying, I just gagged, LOL. This was the exact line my ex used after telling him repeatedly that I felt like a convenience. When I broke up with him, suddenly he wants to take me on a trip. He wants to take me anywhere I want for dinner. He wants to do anything for me. Where was that energy our entire relationship? Not when I traveled over an hour to see him, brought him a gift, and he asked me out somewhere just to split the bill. Not when I was crying that he didn't take any interest in me and he just said I have emotional blind spots sometimes. Not when I had talk after talk articulating my needs. That drives me bonkers. And that's the thing. Women communicate what we need. We do. But for whatever reason, they don't hear us. What we say gets interpreted as wah, 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 or nagging. And so that's the reason why when women jump into my comment section to say, well, did you communicate? He's not a mind reader. Women communicate. Women speak. They just they pick and choose what they're going to hear and acknowledge. And then Venja responds with, yeah, they didn't want to do it for us and our happiness. They wanted to do it to not get abandoned. That shows how little they cared about us as people and how much better we are off without them. And to that, the OP says, 3 years after and still not over it, girl, you dodged a bullet. And then she says, no, 7 years after. The 3 years is the time frame in which I repeatedly told him, stop doing that. It hurts me very much. If you don't stop doing it, I will someday have to leave you. She gave him 3 years to get it together. And he was like, nope. And now he's just like, I cannot believe you left. But that's the thing. And like she said, this is the difference between men and women handling these things because 7 years later, he's not over it. All right. Do you have a story to tell? Join the conversation in the comments. Let me know. Like, comment, and share. We have a child support story and we have some deadbeats in this story and we have some deadbeats being held accountable. So just stick and stay because after Mrs. Michi's story, we have other stories in the comment section. She says, today is the last day my son's father can make things right. My son leaves for college tomorrow and turns 18 next month. His father has been begging me to take him off child support. Even though the case closes next month, he still owes a little over $60,000 in arrears. Now, I told him I'd remove him from child support if he fixes my son's car and my truck. The problem is he can't be a father to all of his kids at once and want to keep running the streets. I feel like he should have made my son a priority given the situation. The fact that she's willing to wipe $60,000 away is already wild to me. But don't worry, y'all. Do not worry. People were giving it to her in the comment section. Do not worry about that part. Second part, she says, he wants to do his own thing, though. If he's not picking which kid to deal with at the moment, he's neglecting all of them at once and have the nerve to still be procreating. Now, I'm not holding my breath for him to do what's right in 24 hours, but if someone's going to forego $60,000 for you, you think you do right? The work on my son's car is just the backup camera, and mine is a sensor on my brake pedal. So not even very much work to do, but even though $60,000 is a lot of money and $60,000 represents the money that she has already spent of her own money that could have been going towards her needs, towards making sure that her car is maintained, whatever she wanted to do with that money. Because yes, when you create babies and you're the non-custodial parent, you do still have a financial responsibility to your child. All right, now let's get into it because the comments were like, absolutely not. Do not let that go. She is waving, says, don't do it. I did it in the past and I regret it. She pinned this comment after getting a bunch of comments on her post. She says, it's way too many comments to reply to all, but the sisters and some of the brothers did not hold back, okay? Foot on my neck and I'm here for it. Y'all are right. That MFer will die owing me. So people got her together and she said, listen, I hear y'all loud and clear. I am not taking this off. I am so glad for that. And that's the thing. This is the reason why you can't be afraid to share in public so that people can give it to you straight. And I'm glad that they did. And I'm glad that she heard. Now let's look at some of these other comments. Southern Girl says, if you're in Texas, you can't close it anyway until the arrears are paid. I tried it. They won't allow it. And in hindsight, shame on me for having sympathy for an MF who ignored my kids' existence for the first half of their life. And Mrs. Michi said, you know what, sis? Hell yeah. Mine will be 18 in a few weeks. He's done next to nothing for him. It's that Jenna says, no disrespect, sis, but why? Why are you even giving him an ultimatum? You've raised your son all these years with minimal help. What does fixing a car prove? Your son still needs a father even after the age of 18. You said he should do right by your son this last time. Nah, this is the moment that you need to do what's right for your son this last time. Put your personal feelings aside. Hold that man accountable for what he owes. And Miss Michi says, you're absolutely right. He going to stay on that till he dies. And when he die, my son going to collect on that policy. And she says, great. I'm glad you agree. Your son could really use that money, hun. She could use that money. She's been paying for years by herself. This is Miss Michi's money. Behold, a man has arrived. We now have a man, and we will return after a brief mansplanation. We're going to have to work through this comment together. He says, look at how you all ladies acting so mean. Like, seriously. This men, I'm sure, have once be a darling and caring man. Remember those good old days when he does make you happy. Let him off, please. You gave him a good deal. I believe he will comply. Disregard all this advice of not letting him loose. So, if he was a darling before and caring before, that should be enough to erase the thousands upon thousands of dollars that he neglected to pay to financially support his own child. Mrs. Michi says, is this my son's father behind a fake page? And he says, nope, just a concerned man. I will never be in such a situation. I'm 1000% involved in all my children's life. 1 wife, 4 children. And she says, that's great. Fathers matter. But this is a man that's married and he takes care of all his children. But you see what's going on. He's still going to bat for a deadbeat. They stay on code no matter what. He knows what it's like to support kids because he has his kids in his home. Yet he wants this woman to take the man off, to let him off, to let him be a deadbeat because at one point in time, he was a darling and caring man. They stay on code. This is why it is so important to disregard when they come in. Just disregard this. Now we have a feel-good story. Well, at least it makes me feel good. Naked Black Poet says, there was an elderly man working at Burger King with a horrible attitude. He said he only worked because he had to finish paying child support. He was in his 70s. His daughter was in her 50s. He said he bought her a house, but it was considered a gift. Child support does not go away. He was one bitter, angry man. It follows you. These dumb McGrums just think that they could just ignore it. Absolutely, that is going to follow you. If you get a settlement, that mom will get it. If you have life insurance, that mom will get it. Pay what you owe. Pay what you owe. So, Gotta Love Seal says exactly. Those are arrears that he must pay no matter how old the child is. No new payments, but those arrears are for life. And then she responds with, right, the arrears will be there until paid or death do you part. I got $109 a month for 18 years, and he's behind with that. Like, ninja, how? Seal says, yeah, that's crazy. I pray you get all the funds that your child was entitled to. And then she says, thank you. Being a single mom was not easy. I decided to never have another, not even when I was married. I don't see how people have multiple and they had to do that alone. And then Seal said, yeah, it was a struggle, but you're doing it, sis. I was married young at 19 with 2 daughters and divorced by the time my youngest was 4. Single mom ever since. They are now 37 and 35 with kids of their own. We have another good story. Alyssa says, my ex-husband owes me $5,700. He's been begging for me to get rid of the arrears, and I said no. My oldest is only 9, and while I'm remarried and have a baby, the whole time he begged me for a paternity test, even though I never cheated. Came late to the birth. Was hype as hell about signing her birth certificate. So I said, fine. I joined and left the military and bought a house, medically retired and moved on. He got a girlfriend and got duped into signing for her kids that aren't his, and now he wants me to let it go so he can go to Aruba. No, take care of your baby. It's $350 a month. No, no, no. I told him, why should I be accommodating when I've been the one doing everything? And yes, he gets to see her, but you're still in the same place. No. And $350 a month is less than $100 a week. That is terrible. That's not helpful at all. And people need to stop acting like these women are taking all of this money and just doing something like buying houses and just getting their nails and hair done. $100 a month is less than $100 a month is not enough money to do anything. And these dudes need to do better. And no, do not take your foot off their neck. Put it on their harder. Join the conversation. Let me know, do you have any child support stories to share? And I am looking to, I'm adding onto my YouTube. I'm trying to get up to 100,000 by the end of the year. So go ahead and hit subscribe.
Men are not lonely enough, and here is how I know. In the last hour, I've seen 2 videos from 2 beautiful young women talking about how open they are to dating men and how difficult they are finding it. And the comment section of both videos was full of men being awful. The first video was a woman who was in her late 30s, and she was talking about the fact that men don't approach her anymore, and the comment section was full of men ripping apart her appearance. The second video was a woman in her late 20s, and she was talking about the fact that she had been ghosted on the day of a date. A few hours before she was supposed to go on the date, the man unmatched with her and he removed her from everything. And the comment section was full of men blaming her for that awful behaviour. And all I'm saying is that if they were really lonely, if they were really, really lonely, then they would stop blaming women for absolutely everything. They'd stop acting like a bunch of whiny, entitled brats and expecting women to lower their standards and exist solely for their pleasure and comfort and do something about themselves. But they don't want to do that. We all saw that lovely young woman Riley as well, didn't we, who stood up and talked about all the things she loved behind a curtain, which wasn't obvious in the initial video. And she sounds awesome. Objectively, she's an interesting person. She's scuba certified. She wants to go on all these adventures and she's looking for a man to go along with her. And while she's talking about it, a group of men are sat behind a curtain, nudging each other, laughing and rolling their eyes. And when they're invited to stand up if they want to get to know more about Riley, who is objectively interesting and fun because of all the things that she's doing, they all look around each other, and when no one stands up, none of them stand up. Again, doesn't seem like the behaviour of a gender of people who are really struggling through a loneliness epidemic to me. My point is that if the loneliness epidemic was really as bad as men keep telling us it is, then I wouldn't have opened those comment sections on those videos knowing for a fact there'd be dozens and dozens and dozens of men ripping those women apart and blaming them for why they don't have men to date. If the loneliness epidemic was really as bad as men keep telling us it is, then women like those 2 women and Riley wouldn't have a Saturday night free. Because men would be desperate to date these women. But they're not desperate to date, which means that they're not as lonely as they keep telling everybody that they are. If they were really that lonely, then they would change their behaviour as a collective. They would call each other out. They'd become more emotionally mature and meet the standards that women expect from a romantic partner in 2025. But instead, what they do is blame women for everything, expect women to solve the problem if they whine about it long enough, and they just complain about the fact that having a dick no longer qualifies you automatically for a woman as a romantic partner.